Hey folks, it's been a long time between drinks for the Canon 5D series. The 5D Mark IV was recently announced, soon after actually on the market. And fortunately, a friend of mine bought one, asked me to pick it up for him and said we can have a little play with it before I pass it on to him. So let's check it out. Hey folks, after you've watched this video on the 5D Mark IV, please jump on over to mattgranger.com, see everything we've got going on. You can sign up to my mailing list, get my free guide to improving your portraiture, and then we'll keep you up to date on things first. And if you want to make the most of your new camera, then check out my Take Control of the Light download series. Okay folks, so in this video, I'm actually going to do an unboxing of the product, quickly talk you through the specs, and then go do some tests with it. I only have it for a couple of days. I'm jetting off to Photokina soon, but I wanted to do a little hands-on with you, for you, especially after the first announcement video I did on this guy, which a lot of people weren't very happy with. Now, let's just talk through some specs as I unbox it. So there we go, a gigantic manual, CD and whatnot. This one rocks in at, I don't know, almost 600, just over 600 pages long. Good luck reading through that one. So, there were a lot of things that people weren't happy with about this camera. The card format, the resolution isn't that much bigger, both the card formats actually, and a big one is the video format. Now, I already, after making my initial video on this topic, kind of made a follow-up one where I said, okay, I did overlook a couple of key things that were lacking. And one of the important ones was motion JPEG for video format, which is hugely data intensive. Now, as I said in that, I had been told by videographer friends before that motion JPEG is not a bad format to work with. Now, that was before talking about this specific camera, and having spoken to them again about this one, on paper at least, they think that it's a terrible move. That's one of the things I'm going to be testing out, is how is the actual video quality. I'll be very disappointed if this isn't great quality, at least considering the downsides, because that was one of the things that made the 5D series, the 2 and the 3, such classics, was that they were absolutely outstanding for stills and just great for video as well. So anyway, here's the body. Feels lovely, nice and strong in the hand. I'm sure no one's gonna pick that up and feel that it feels flimsy unless you've only ever been using, 1DXs for the last few years. In here, what have we got? That's our battery charger. I will need to open that one. Sorry to Tom. The strap, I won't open that one on him. The little eyepiece, and then the battery itself. Now, as I said, I've done 2 videos on this already where I go through all of the specs. I'll link to the second one below because that's the most comprehensive one and most balanced. But in terms of the tests I'm going to do, I love to, where possible, to do full field testing videos where I really put things through their paces. But as I said, that's not going to be possible today. So I want to focus in on a couple of specific things that I think people will be interested in. First one is going to be the video. I'm going to do some 4K samples and compare it to my D5 from Nikon and my Sony a7R II. See how's the quality, how's the file at the end of it, and I'll share it with you. Another thing I want to focus on is autofocus. Now, this is a real working professional photographer's series of cameras. The 5D Mark III must be the most used out of any of the different camera models by working professionals. It's just, that's what they're for. So hopefully this one can live up to that legacy, because it is a big legacy coming from the 5D 2 and 3. So let's see how the autofocus does. Then I also want to focus on the high ISO capabilities. How's it looking as we go up through the range? Noting that this only went up from 25,600 to 32,000, not even a full stop, less than half a stop in terms of stated native ISO range. And the final one is, Canon made a statement that this has improved dynamic range, and that's something that a lot of people have pointed out to again and again and again, that the Nikon DSLRs have much greater dynamic range, even the Sony mirrorless do, compared to the Canons. Now, whilst on paper and in Lightroom and in all the tests, I think that does bear out as being true, I don't think it's actually stopping anyone from making their money using these cameras. The majority of pro work is still done on Canon DSLRs, and it's great. But having said that, this is now their latest generation, and I'm going to compare it to my Nikon D810, which is 2 years old, take some shots and see what we can do in terms of recovering shadows, just to see what kind of a result this gives. I compared the Canon 1DX Mark II to the Nikon D5, and I think the Canon did better than the Nikon, so let's see how it does this time around. So it's always lovely to shoot with Jade. Today she brought along her friend Andreas to join us as well, so we shot away, had a good laugh, and put the camera through its paces. Now I should say, all the JPEGs I'm showing you here are high res, standard picture mode, auto white balance, straight from camera, and I'll make some of these available for you to download later. So a lot of questions I had, surprisingly, for this camera in particular, I got a lot of people messaging saying, I just got the 5D4 and I can't get the raw files to work in any of my software. That's nothing to worry about. Use this as a tip for all your future camera purchases. It always takes between a couple of weeks to a couple of months for Adobe to get the updates in there for the raw decoders to work. The software that ships with it, like Canon's own or Nikon's own, will normally work straight away. But so if you're doing a shoot soon after you buy the camera, make sure you're shooting RAW and JPEG, otherwise you won't be able to edit your shots at all, which is what we're doing here. But these JPEGs that are coming out on the back of the camera, even using this plastic fantastic lens, they just look lovely. The Canon color is just fantastic for portraits. So overall, I love the colors coming off this camera. There were, however, sometimes that the white balance was off. These two shots are back to back, nothing changed, but you see the color cast did. So I have no idea what this is, if it's something to do with this body, if I've missed a setting, just the exposure is jumping all around. I'm using the same fixed metering mode. I am just playing with my exposure comp a little bit, you know, depending on the scene we're in. And the same shot is going from being correctly exposed to wildly incorrectly exposed. Taking a look here. So I was shooting with no exposure comp and I was in aperture priority f1.8. It was using ISO 100 and 1/80th of a second. I told it minus 1/3 of a stop. So that should mean going from an 80th of a second to like 100th of a second, and it went to 1/2000th of a second. And underexposed the frame by like 5 stops. I have no idea why, and it did it for the next 5 frames. I'm still at 1/3 underexposed. Let's check it now. Important to note, there's no weird hotspots in the background, and that shot has gone back to normal at 1/125th of a second. I have no idea. I've never seen something like that on a camera before, and this isn't my first time. Jake, look at me. So look, folks, the 5D Mark IV, this is only an overview. It's not a full review. I don't have time to do everything on it, but I can say, having shot with the 5D3 quite a lot, having shot with this one just a little today, the focus seems noticeably improved. It's really fast, and also really fast using the live view. Probably the fastest DSLR for live view I've tested. You just tap the screen, focus, and it gets it just instantly. To be fair, I'm only using the 70-200 2.8 today and the 50mm plastic fantastic f1.8, and they're both just doing fantastically. Love the look of the shots coming off the back of this camera. Now, one thing I mentioned in my early videos and in the intro was about the codec. I have to say, it really does seem like Canon are trying to reposition the 5D series from being an all-in-one video and stills to just being a still solution, because they have a big cinema lineup, and just by putting that codec in here, there's no rationale to it. I've seen some press things where they say, well, we're using it because it's so stable and blah, blah, blah. Well, what do you mean it's stable? You've never used it in your previous cameras. You're not using it in your other cameras. No other manufacturer is using it. It's trying to put people off. There's no real advantage to it, as far as I can tell. So to test that, I'm just gonna get a test video here of a minute of 4K using the 5D Mark IV and my Nikon D5 and my Sony a7R II. Same basic settings, and let's see how the file type works out and if there is any noticeable image quality difference using the Motion JPEG. So first up here is the Canon 5D Mark IV. Note that this is a wider format, 4096 compared to 3840 of most of the other DSLRs. This is also a 1.64 crop off the full frame sensor. Some people are a bit pissed off about that. Here's the Nikon. It's also a crop. This is 1.5 to get 4K, and it's the more common variant of 4K resolution. And here's the Sony a7R II, same resolution as the D5. This one was shot with no crop factor, but the camera does give you the option of a Super 35 mode. Now let's put them side by side, see if you can tell a difference. And the big determining factor is file size. We did a minute on each of these. The Sony a7R II worked out to 425 meg file size. The Nikon, it was a lot bigger at 872 megabytes, whereas the Canon 5D Mark IV, oh my God, 4.08 gigabyte. That's a ton of data to crush. Do you think it's worth it given the image quality? So one quick thing I want to test today is the high ISO capabilities. So we're going to close these blinds, put this through its paces all the way up, and then I'll just show you the files. I'll even give you some JPEGs. Check the caption below. There'll be a link over to mattgranger.com where you can check out some of the JPEGs. Here we go with some ISO shots. I'm going to run all the way up to its native maximum of 32,000 and then on to its high boost. I'll make these files available for you to download and you can check them out for yourself. For me, 3200 is about as far as I would want to go by choice. If I was pushed, of course, you know, get the shot is the most important thing. At the high end, it is looking rubbish, but I kind of like that they didn't just give it a million ISO just on paper and make it completely unusable. Okay, so a couple of little tests there. Last one I wanted to demonstrate today is the shadow recovery capacity of this versus the D810. Now, Canon say it has been improved in terms of dynamic range over previous sensors. The D810 is a 2-year-old camera now. So let's head into studio and we'll do some test shots there to compare the two and wrap things up. Now, this is a flawed test. The Canon only has JPEGs available for editing, so we're doing them both in JPEG. You really want to do this test in RAW. Normally I would skip this thing, we can only do JPEG, but something interesting popped up. So first of all, I shot the Nikon and the Canon on exactly the same settings from 2 stops overexposed down to 5 stops underexposed. So let's now drop the exposure on 2 stops on each to match them. Okay, throughout this I'm going to put the Nikon on the left, Canon on the right. Now, first off, the Nikon has that telltale green color to it. It just doesn't nail the white balance as well in challenging situations. This was mixed light, but mainly LED light. But they're both retaining detail quite well. Obviously I misfocused slightly on the left, but no real problems. The thing that I wanted to show you that really surprised me, let's go up to 4 stops underexposed on each of these. Okay, now these are shots taken 4 stops underexposed. Let's bring them up. Now first off, going in close, the noise pattern in the background is different. I'd say still the Nikon's got the color cast. It's finer slightly on the Nikon, but it's pretty damn close. It would be hard to separate one of those out here. And that enough is a big improvement for Canon because they were so far behind. Now, admittedly, the Nikon is 2 years old, the Canon's brand new, but still that's a big improvement. But it's actually what's hidden in the 5 stops underexposed folder that I want to show you. So let's bring those up 5 stops. Okay, again, Nikon on the left. Now these are same settings and for whatever reason the exposure has gone quite off here. One thing to note, the Nikon has gone all blue and unnatural. The Canon has stayed true. But take a look in here on the shirts and the Canon has really odd banding coming up there. If we take a look at just the Canon, is that coming through clearly? Really obvious banding there. And we're getting really odd color fringing. So we're getting yellows and blues just come up and yeah, something's gone really wrong there at 5 stops. If we just to really push it to show you what we're talking about here, there you go. There you can clearly see the lines that are coming in there. If we do the same on the Nikon, no such results. So I'm not sure what exactly has happened on the Canon. And when we do that, then you see all of this yellow that's coming in, the browns and yellows in the shadows, which again, we're not getting on the Nikon. So I think it's fair to say on the JPEG, which is not a complete test, the Canon is still trailing. Okay folks, so I can't really say that I've done a complete review on a flagship camera like this in a day of testing. I'll give you my initial thoughts and then fingers crossed I can get one in from Canon to test a little bit more long term. As I've noted in the video, I kind of focused on things that weren't quite up to scratch. The white balance jumped around a couple of times, and the exposure compensation just sent things haywire several times. No idea what that's about. The video format, big disappointment. For me, that was really one of the things that made the 5D4 a classic. The video quality looks lovely, but given the file size, it is just hugely impractical. I think it's been done specifically to push people away from using this for their 4K work and into the higher range. Otherwise, all the justifications given why they're using Motion JPEG make no sense. Why aren't you using it in other places too? It's just to be prohibitive, I think. So if you're buying, but having said that, they could update it just with firmware, but I don't think they will. So if you were going to buy this for video and that file size puts you off, but you're gonna buy it anyway, hoping they'll fix it, I would say don't. Buying something that doesn't meet your needs now is kind of a losing proposition, and vote with your money. Having said that, if you're a working professional photographer or an enthusiast photographer, mostly shooting stills, not shooting, high frames per second stuff, occasionally doing a bit of video, and most of the time 1080 is going to work for you, then I think this is going to absolutely knock it out of the park for you. How can I say that after all of the things I've put through here? The 5D3 for stills was phenomenal. This is better. The focus is fantastic. The ISO is improved. The resolution has a bump. It handles beautifully. The pinch to zoom and all of that stuff. The touchscreen is working great. Yes, the card slots are a bit outdated and there's other technical issues on paper that aren't any good. Get it out in the field, test it out, look at the results, and importantly, see how it is to actually work with. All of these whiz-bang cameras that on paper have for everything, every possible option you could imagine, they have them in them, look great on paper. Get them out in the field and see how they actually work. That's how you're gonna know if a camera works for you. And I stand by my prediction. Look back in 2 or 3 years' time to see how many people are actually owning these cameras, shooting with them, producing amazing results, populating magazines, selling advertising, all of that kind of thing. I bet you the 5D4 is going to be one of, if not the most used professional camera in 2 years' time, in the same way that the 5D3 is right now. It has its flaws, it has its limitations, it's expensive, but if you're a pure shooter, whether you're an enthusiast or a professional, I really think this is a cracker of a camera. The video, that is a massive disappointment though. Anyway, hopefully I can get one in to test out full time. Do jump over to the website, sign up to the mailing list. We've got lots going on in the next couple of months, and I'll see you soon. I hope that was of some help to you. Cheers, guys.